between the times when the oceans drank Atlantis, and the rise of the Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones as kings of the fantasy genre, there was an age undreamed of. And unto this, Conan the Barbarian was released, and destined to wear the jeweled crown of sword and sorcery upon a troubled brow. It is I, this YouTube reviewer alone, who can tell thee the tale. Let me tell you the days of high adventure.
Oh, hey there. Welcome back to Pork Chop Productions. My name is Dwight, and today I am super excited to bring you guys one of my favorite movies of all time, 1982's Conan the Barbarian. As animated adaptations of Tolkien's work were popularized in the late 70s, a new round of live-action sword and sorcery movies hit the big screen, and the mother of them all was Conan the Barbarian. Often duplicated but never replicated, this movie is a beautiful masterpiece of filmmaking. So strap on your leather and fur and get oiled up real good as we prepare to solve the riddle of steel. In 1982, Conan was already 50 years old. Created in 1932 by Robert E. Howard and published in Weird Tales magazine alongside other such writers like H.P. Lovecraft, Conan was the tale of a Sumerian warrior destined to become king by his own hand. The stories were hyper-masculine and violent, but also included an amazing amount of world building, 5 years before Tolkien would even publish The Hobbit. Over the years, Conan's tales have endured. Even after the author's suicide in 1936, his stories have been carried on by a slew of new authors and been adapted into all types of media, from comic books to video games. It was the success of Conan in Marvel Comics that eventually led to the character getting his own Hollywood adaptation in 1982. The comic book was the perfect platform for Conan, with violence and sexuality leaking off the page. It was an ideal engine to tell these hyper-violent stories of the Hyborian Age, and the barbarian who conquered it all. To this day, it's one of my favorite comics. In 1975, Edward Pressman and Edward Summer began discussing using Arnold Schwarzenegger in a film designed around his physique. They were interested in the work of Frank Frazetta, the illustrator for many of the most famous Conan depictions, and they were sold on the idea of a Schwarzenegger-led Conan movie. Oliver Stone was hired to do the screenplay, and what he came up with was a massive story involving armies of mutants and genetic freaks. The movie would have cost the studio $40 million to produce, a price the studio was not willing to pay at the time, and so changes were made. At this time, Dino De Laurentiis became involved and sold the idea to Universal Studios. De Laurentiis decided to approach John Milius, who had just written both Dirty Harry and Magnum Force, to direct and rework the screenplay. Milius retained many of the scenes in the first half of Stone's draft, such as the Tree of Woe and the Tower of Set sequence, but discarded the mutant-heavy second half. With Arnold already on board, casting began. Milius hired his surfing buddy, Jerry Lopez, as Subutai, Conan's partner, and Sondel Bergman as warrior thief Valeria. And rounding out the cast was James Earl Jones as Thulsa Doom. Filming began in October of 1980 and was wrapped by May of 1981. During post-production, the studio had issues with all the violence and several scenes were cut, including much of the violence from the opening village attack and footage of Conan's mother's decapitated head. The movie was then released May of 1982. Conan opened to mixed reviews, but then went on to VHS, where it became one of the most rented videos in 1982. The title was listed in Billboard's video cassette top 40 sales for 23 weeks and has gone on to be a revered cult classic. The movie opens with a young Conan learning about Crom, the Sumerian god, from his father, and the riddle of steel. His father teaches him that there is only one thing in all this world he can trust.
No one in this world can you trust. Not men, not women, not beasts.
This is important because it allows us to understand Conan's values and belief system, and thereby understand his motivations throughout this movie. Conan's village is then attacked, and I gotta ask, who the fuck is this guy? For some reason, he reminds me of that feral kid from The Road Warrior. Did he grow up and become Thulsa Doom's tracker? I don't know, but I'd like to see that movie. The evil horsemen ride under a symbol, a black sun and black moon, with two snakes facing each other. This symbol will be burned into Conan's memory, as his village is slaughtered and enslaved, and his parents are killed, including his mother, who pulls off an Obi-Wan Kenobi, and is beheaded by Conan's father's own sword. Conan is taken a slave, and for 15 years grinds at the wheel of pain, as he is transformed into the world's greatest action star, Arnold Schwarzenegger. Conan is eventually sold to a slaver who uses him as a pit-fighting gladiator. Conan shows his skills in the pits and therefore is taken to the east and trained by great swordsmen. And
he was bred to the finest stock.
Eventually, Conan earns his freedom and is left to wander the waste alone. He is attacked by dogs and seeks refuge in an ancient throne room, which is now a tomb. He sees this as a sign as he finds a sword and feels that Crom has blessed him.
Crom.
With his new sword, Conan turns the dogs into his new fur coat and sets out for adventure and to find Thulsa Doom. Conan stumbles on a hut, which is owned by a witch, who seduces him while telling him she has foreseen his coming.
They said you would come, a man who would someday be king by his own hand. One who would crush the snakes of the earth.
The witch begins to transform into a demon, but Conan isn't down with this, so he just tosses her into the fire. Smart move. The next morning, Conan finds a man chained to her hut. He meets Subutai, archer and thief. Conan frees Subutai, and the two head out for Samara, an ancient city where the witch said he would find what he was looking for. On the way, the two have a lively discussion on religion.
Yeah, my God is greater.
Crom laughs with the four winds. Laughs from his mountain.
My God is stronger. He is the everlasting sky. Your God lives underneath him.
Upon entering this city, the two slayers get high on what I assume is opium, and Conan insults some people
You're sluts.
and punches a camel. Seriously, you can't take this guy with you anywhere. While in Samara, they learn about the Eye of the Serpent and a nearby tower, and plan their robbery. Upon attempting to scale the walls, they meet Valeria, who emasculates the men with quick wit and some sharp words about their intelligence.
You don't even have a rope. Two fools who laugh at death.
However, they decide to team up, and now it becomes a heist movie. The three thieves enter the temple, kill one big-ass snake, and make off with the treasure. They then spend an unknown amount of time involved in all manner of debaucheries, and Conan and Valeria hook up and pledge their love. The thieves are summoned by King Osric, played by the exorcist himself, Max von Sydow, who hires the thieves to steal back his daughter from Thulsa Doom, who has joined his Jim Jones death cult and now worships him. Conan rides off alone to do the job, where he meets the wizard, his chronicler. He learns of Doom's location and heads to the Temple of Set, where he attempts to go full deep cover and sneak into the compound. But as you can imagine, Arnie kind of sticks out here and is caught rather quickly. Conan is then questioned by Thulsa Doom, who teaches Conan the real answer to the riddle of steel.
The riddle of steel.
Yes. You know what it is, don't you, boy?
Being that steel can be broken and flesh is stronger. Doom extols the virtues of megalomania and explains that real power comes from being able to command others to die for you. Conan is crucified, and even near death takes no shit as he kills a vulture with his own teeth. Yeah, PETA really loves this movie. Near death, Conan is rescued by Subutai and Valeria and is taken to the wizard who uses his magic to heal Conan, but at a price. Valeria agrees she will pay any price as long as Conan can be healed.
The spirit of this place extract a heavy toll.
Then I will pay them.
As we enter the third act, the three warriors ride for Doom's temple together and storm the throne room during a great snake orgy. A fantastic bloody fight scene ensues as Doom's guards are slaughtered and a great cauldron of appendage soup is spilled over the throne room. Doom himself transforms into a giant snake and escapes. The trio of thieves grab the princess and bug out, but Valeria is struck down with a venomous arrow from Doom as she pays the price for Conan's life. Conan is broken, yet he doesn't cry.
Why do you cry?
He is Conan, the married. He won't cry. So I cry for him.
Instead, he burns her body on a pyre and prepares for revenge. Now Conan and Subutai must face the hordes of Doom one last time in an awesome battle scene. They set a trap and prepare to home alone these fuckers as they ride in and are wiped out by Conan and Subutai. The movie comes full circle as Conan smashes his father's sword during the battle. Doom, however, escapes, but not for long, as Conan sneaks into the temple, and just as Doom is about to self-immolate the whole cult, Conan approaches him, and Doom explains why Conan needs him, as he has been the driving, motivating force for Conan's entire life.
For who now is your father if it is not me?
Thulsa Doom misses his mark here, however, as Conan is not that nuanced. He instead just lops this fucker's head off and throws it down some stairs. Badass. As the movie ends, we see the Temple of Set up in flames, and we are shown an old Conan sitting on a throne, as the wizard explains,
In time, he became a king by his own hand. This story shall also be told.
This movie's cast is stellar, with Schwarzenegger, Bergman, and Lopez as our main characters, and James Earl Jones as our villain. Other notable cast members include Max von Sydow, veteran actor Mako as the Wizard, and Arnold's bodybuilding buddy Sven Ole Thorsen, and former Oakland Raider Ben Davidson. Sandal Bergman was a dancer and stage actress before Conan, and was cast after being seen in All That Jazz. Due to her body type being difficult to cast, she ended up doing her own stunts, and nearly lost a finger during a sword fight scene. She is very believable as a Valkyrie-type warrior, with her blonde hair and muscular lithe body. Her involvement really steps this movie up a notch, and she is both sexy and deadly. Arnold is the real standout here. Not known for his acting prowess, he pulls off the brooding Cimmerian perfectly in this film. He has very little dialogue, which works well for this character, but his facial expressions and passion for the role come through. In my opinion, this is one of Arnie's best roles, and one I feel he was born for. James Earl Jones kills every scene he is in, no pun intended. He has amazing presence and seems otherworldly. They gave him blue eyes and long straight hair to make him seem as if he was part of a lost race of men further along on the evolutionary scale. Some critics feel that there was too much cheese and violence in this movie. I highly disagree, and I love the over-the-top violence, and I feel this movie is one of the most quotable movies ever made, with lines like,
To crush your enemies, see them driven before you, and to hear the lamentation of their women.
This film sticks with you long after the credits have rolled. As mentioned before, reviews of this movie were mixed. Some of those who did give it a good review saw this movie as a guilty pleasure, as if it wasn't a serious movie, but another cheesy sword and sorcery movie. I very much disagree here. Milius uses Nietzschean philosophy and opens the movie with the quote, "That which does not kill you makes you stronger." This is a theme throughout the movie, as we see Conan's family murdered and him enslaved, and then used as a pit fighter. He is traumatized and beaten down, but this doesn't make him weak or lead him to cowering in fear. Instead, his slavery on the wheel of pain builds his strength. His time as a gladiator gives him training, and his family's murder gives him purpose. Conan learns early on that there's no use praying to Crom because he doesn't listen.
But I seldom pray to him. He doesn't listen.
And so at the end of it, he says, to hell with you. I'll do it myself.
So grant me one request. Grant me revenge. And if you do not listen, then to hell with you.
The film is shot beautifully. Milius uses wide shots and landscapes to give you a sense of how big this world is. The sets are very detailed and extravagant at times, while others are minimalistic, suggesting a civilization that is long past. I can only imagine that the cities seen in this movie are what ancient cities like Ur and Eridu were like. The score is one of the highlights of this movie, composed by Basil Poledouris. It is perhaps my favorite movie score of all time. It is sweeping and epic and plays as one constant unending piece of music throughout the movie. Milius planned the movie to be like an opera, and therefore the music had to add character and depth, and it does this in spades. I would put this score up against any other movie score. It is one of the all-time greats and every bit as iconic as music by John Williams or Jerry Goldsmith. Conan did get a sequel in 1984, but Conan the Destroyer had some good moments, but just didn't have the weight and gravitas that Barbarian does. The violence was toned down, and there was more cheesy dialogue than the original. There was a TV series, Conan the Adventurer, in 1997 that ran for 22 episodes. This is not a very good show. It felt more like a Xena ripoff. There was even an animated series, but I've never seen it, so I can't tell you if it's any good or not. That being said, I don't see Conan as a children's television series. In 2011, Conan was rebooted with Khal Drogo, Jason Momoa as Conan. This was at best a mediocre movie. Momoa isn't bad, but the movie just didn't do what the 1982 version did, and give us a world that felt lived in and real, and the plot was uninspiring and just kinda meh. At this time, Netflix is preparing a Conan series, but as of now, not much is known. For fans like me, who have been waiting for a new King Conan with Arnie for years, and with the Netflix series in production, it's likely we will not see it anytime soon. Arnold has been on board for this for a long time, and there was a time not so long ago where he was shopping this version around. Unfortunately, the rights to Conan have been a big issue, and he was never able to secure those for a new Conan sequel, so we may have to just wait and see. It's unfortunate that we haven't got a proper Schwarzenegger-led King Conan movie, but I'll keep my fingers crossed that someday soon we'll get this movie. I give Conan 8.5 Snake Earl Joneses out of 10. This really is a fantasy classic, and it's paved the way for other movies such as The Lord of the Rings and the Game of Thrones series. If you haven't yet seen Conan the Barbarian, please go check it out. If you're a fan of fantasy or action, I guarantee you'll enjoy this film. If you like this video, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more fantasy content in the future. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.
Success can test one's mettle as surely as the strongest adversary.